A little boy writes a letter to a billionaire CEO expressing his wish for a new dad. Mine left, and my mom hasn't smiled since. What he decides to do next will bring about a change for them. Lives forever. Before we begin, we'd love to hear from you in the comments about where you're watching us from. And don't forget to like this video, support the channel, then sit back, relax, and enjoy. Story Finn Wesley gave only a fleeting look at the handwritten envelope before cheerfully adding it to the ever-growing pile of letters on his. He had a mahogany desk and an entire department dedicated to filtering through requests for investments and SOB. Stories from strangers who believed that money could solve all their problems. Usually, they never connected with him, but for some reason, this one did. His assistant set it aside, suggesting that you might find this one interesting. He could have chosen to overlook it, just like he always did, concentrating on the numbers, the next deal, and the next empire to build. Build instead after the board meeting had tested his patience. And a glass of whiskey sat half empty on his desk. His eyes drifted back to the letter. And with a hopeful sigh, he picked it up, unfolded the slightly crumpled paper and read, "Dear Mr. Wesley, my name is Felix, and I'm looking for a new dad because mine left. And my mom hasn't smiled in a while. I thought maybe you could help with that. I would love to help. My only wish is for her to find happiness again. Please write. Back if you can, Felix Jameson. Age 7. Finn stared at the words longer than he should have. He could envision a little kid at a kitchen table, tongue sticking out in concentration as he wrote each letter with great care, believing that a billionaire might just take notice. It was a bit outlandish to think he wasn't a father, but there was always a chance for change. Even the kind of man who stayed in relationships long enough to contemplate one. He managed companies, not families, yet as he sat in the dim glow of his office, the words beckoning to him. He tried to push them away, reassuring himself that they weren't his. That night, he faced a challenge, but he remained hopeful as he tried to find rest. The letter igniting a spark of determination in his thoughts. By morning, he had reassured himself that it was simply another request from someone who needed his help. He crumpled the letter, tossed it in the trash, and moved on, but he found himself unable to let go. Days later, during a meeting with potential investors, his focus momentarily shifted while his legal team enthusiastically discussed profit margins and international expansion. Sparked his imagination as he reflected on the note to the words that were simply hoping for a mother to smile again by the end of the week. He surrendered to his curiosity. That was all it was. He wasn't getting involved. He just wanted to see. The person who wrote that letter realized it wasn't his concern and decided to move on. A quick investigation showed that Felix lived in a charming neighborhood on the outskirts of the city in a house that had its own unique character. The grass in the front yard has its unique charm, and the porch has a delightful character with its slightly uneven steps. But it wasn't a place of despair, just one where someone had made an effort to nurture life despite the challenges faced. Though Finn had been lost, he expected the boy to be shy, perhaps a bit intimidated by him, but he wasn't at all. When Felix opened the door, all wide-eyed and wearing an oversized hoodie, he squinted up with curiosity. Finn observed him closely, but then, seemingly unfazed, he turned back into the house and called out to Mom, referring to the wealthy man. Finn couldn't help but stifle a laugh as Felix led him into the small space. The living room featured an old couch and a few mismatched chairs basking in the warm glow of a dim lamp, filling the house with a unique aroma. Vanilla and something warm. Comforting in a way Finn hadn't felt in years, so Felix said, climbing onto the couch and sitting cross-legged, "Are you here to make it better?" Raised an eyebrow, thinking about how my mom always said, "You're a billionaire. You can fix things. That's what you do." Wealthy individuals often make positive choices, Finn paused. "I believe there may have been a misunderstanding about what I do." Felix huffed. "I don't want money. I just want my mom to be happy again, Finn." He hesitated, unsure of how to reply, when suddenly a woman's voice filled the air, catching Felix's attention. The doorway, and for the first time in Finn Wesley's life, he was entirely and absolutely amazed. Mia Jameson, the girl he admired from afar in high school. The cafeteria, where he had once felt too shy to speak to her, the one who filled the margins of her notebook with delightful doodles, and hummed softly under her breath when she thought no one was listening. Her eyes wide with curiosity as she blinked at him, a look of wonder crossing her face. Finn, the way she said his name, sparked a feeling in his chest that made him nod with a sense of hope. Felix looked on, Between them, he then pointed at his mother with a sense of certainty, saying, "You do know him." "I knew it." Finn cleared his throat as we went to school together. And Mia crossed her arms with a sense of determination. Looking hopeful, "Yeah, a long time ago," Felix grinned. "She had a crush on you, you know." Finn nearly gasped as he turned to Mia, who was now giving her son Felix a fierce look. What a moment. "It's true. I saw the yearbook." Finn felt like the ground had just shifted in an exciting way. "Yearbook?" Felix nodded as she traced a heart around your face, and Mia seemed eager to join in. Disappear Finn, however, found himself grinning for the first time in days. She sighed. "Mia, you should go." Finn stepped forward, his smile dimming as he looked at Felix. "Wrote me a letter," and her expression shifted instantly. Her protectiveness flared brightly. "A lioness, prepared to stand strong. Took action on what I requested." Felix chimed in, and Finn joined the conversation. Observed as Mia's shoulders relaxed, a hint of struggle crossing her face. "Felix. Sweetheart, I don't need—" "Yes. You do," he interrupted. "You don't laugh anymore." With a hint of a smile, "You still set the dinner table for 3, even though it's just us." In that moment, Finn noticed the depth in her eyes. The weariness and the hint of sadness that lingered there hovered just beneath the surface. "What happened?" he asked gently. Now Mia exhaled, gently settling onto the armrest of the couch. Felix's father was He faced challenges as a gambling addict and experienced significant losses, but when he reached the bottom, he found the strength to move forward. Finn's hands formed tight fists, just like that Finn could. Look at how she fought to maintain her voice, determined not to let herself falter in front of her son. It's truly inspiring. Something new stirred in him. Perhaps it was the way Felix had reached out to himself, but for her, perhaps it was the way Mia looked at him now, as if inviting him in. It was the most thrilling thing she could do. Perhaps it was just the delightful twist of fate that had brought him into her life. Doorstep. When she had once circled his face with a heart for the first time in years, Finn felt like he was exactly where he needed to be, where he was meant to be. And he was excited to discover what to do next. Finn couldn't. He couldn't shake off the image of Felix's hopeful face and Mia's guarded expression the moment he left their house. The expression remained with him, echoing like a melody he couldn't stop playing. He shared. He had accomplished what he set out to do. He met the boy, understood the situation, and confirmed it was none of his concern. Business, and as he sat in his office gazing at the city skyline, he felt a sense of possibility. It was a misunderstanding. It was his opportunity now. And Finn Wesley was determined to see it through. That was important, so he took action as he always had. He tackled the problem head-on first. He took care of Mia's debts with ease. A few phone calls and a quick wire transfer made it all happen. After noticing the worn-out sedan in the driveway, he arranged for a sleek new car to be delivered to her house, accompanied by a luxurious gift basket filled with chocolates, spa treatments, and high-end wine. It was a delightful, an elegant and effortless fix, but the next day, Finn's assistant walked into his office carrying the delightful gift basket that Miss Jameson returned this, she said, setting it down with a cheerful look, and the car she sent it back to the dealership mentioned that she doesn't accept charity. And Finn let out a sharp exhale while running a hand through his hair. Of course she did. Mia had always been strong. He should have realized that simply throwing money at the problem wouldn't lead to a solution. He wasn't quite aware of that, attempting to make her feel like she needed help. But that's precisely what he had accomplished. It's great that he recognized the need for a different approach instead of relying solely on money. That would make her feel like she was being appreciated rather than fixed. And the next day he showed up on her doorstep again. She opened the door with her arms crossed, already showing a hint of frustration. "Unless you're here to take back your money, I'm not interested," Finn smirked. "She has a different offer." And with a sigh, Finn interrupted Felix, turning his attention. "Look at the boy sitting cross-legged on the couch. Have you ever been on a private jet?" Felix's eyes widened in excitement. "No way," he breathed, his voice filled with wonder as Finn shoved his hands into his pockets. "Just keeping it light. I have one and was considering taking a little exciting trip this weekend. Possibly to an island with stunning ocean views and crystal clear water." Responsibilities. He glanced at Mia. "You could use a break." Mia's expression flickered with uncertainty. "We can't simply make Mom happy," Felix interjected enthusiastically, jumping in place. "A private jet? An island? Can you believe it, Finn?" He fought back a grin as Mia gave him a look that seemed to ask, "What's the catch?" "No catch," Finn said simply. "Just a weekend. No debt payoffs, no gifts, just some quality time together." "Away." Mia hesitated, then she sighed, glancing at Felix, whose expression was bright. "I'm happy to discuss things, but I believe it's best if we take care of our own expenses if we decide to go. Our own food." Finn chuckled, "And of course, we'll split the check." Felix was practically buzzing with enthusiasm as they boarded the jet. "This is incredible," he exclaimed while running his hands over the leather seats, eyes sparkling as he absorbed the luxurious surroundings. "Interior, you truly own this." "Yep," Finn said, amused by the wonder in his voice. Felix turned to Mia. "Mom, did you know people actually live like this?" Mia shot. "Finally, take a look." I'm aware Felix had no such reservations. He confidently tested the reclining seats, pressed the buttons, and admired the flight attendant offering refreshments when the pilot came out to greet them. Finn spotted his chance. "Have you ever been in a cockpit before?" he asked. Felix shook his head rapidly. "No way." Finn nodded toward the pilot. He brought him up front to let him see how it works. The pilot smiled and said, "Come on, kid." Felix almost dashed toward the front, leaving Finn and me in the serene cabin as she folded her arms and leaned back into her seat. "This could be an interesting idea." Finn arched a brow. "Because you might." "I truly enjoy it, even though I'm not sure what you expect from this," Finn exhaled. "I don't want anything, Mia. I just saw Felix's letter, and I saw you. And it really made me think. Just walk away." Mia looked at him, a spark of something shining through her guarded expression. "That's the challenge, Finn. You have the opportunity to walk away and embrace a vibrant life filled with possibilities. High-powered life. This isn't something you need to solve." He observed her for a. "Perhaps it's not about fixing anything." She shook her head, letting out a dry laugh, and then Finn pondered the question, feeling a sense of curiosity as he considered how to respond. So he truly saw her, the girl he had once admired from afar, now sitting across from him, full of strength, full of resilience, still giving it everything. It was a challenge to keep everything in place, but just before he could speak again, Fix came rushing back, practically overflowing with excitement. Excitement filled the air as I got to press a button. Finn grinned and asked, "Yeah, which one?" I replied, "The best one. The pilot mentioned it was just for show, but I definitely flew the plane." Mia smiled and shook her head, but Finn noticed. Something in her expression had softened. Perhaps she wasn't completely miserable about this trip after all. The island was even more breathtaking than Finn remembered. The sky stretched endlessly over a turquoise ocean, and the sun shone brightly, casting a radiant glow over the white sand. Felix took off running the moment they stepped onto the beach, kicking off. His shoes splashed into the waves as Finn and Mia followed at a leisurely pace. She had her arms wrapped around herself, her expression wistful despite the beauty around her. "You seem to hold on tightly, don't you?" Finn asked, and she shot him a look. "You think single moms get a lot of free time?" "Fair point." She let out a breath. "I just want to ensure Felix stays open to new possibilities. Something temporary." Finn hesitated. "Who said it's temporary?" Mia turned to face. His expression was guarded as he looked at her. "Finn, you truly have a place in this world of ours. I truly value all that you've accomplished. But this isn't quite the enchanting story where a billionaire comes to the rescue and makes everything better." Than observed her for a long moment. "And what if I just want to be here?" As Mia's eyes searched his. But before she could answer, Felix came barreling toward them, dripping wet and grinning. "Mom, the water's amazing. You have to come in," Finn smirked, sounding like an exciting invitation. Mia sighed, shaking her head. "I'm not getting in that water." Felix pouted. "Come on, just for a little bit." Finn leaned in slightly, lowering his voice. "What? Afraid to have fun?" Mia narrowed her eyes. She playfully responded, "Oh, you wish." And before she could think twice, Finn took her hand and pulled her toward the waves. She yelled as the water hit her ankles, laughing despite herself, and for the first time since he met her again, Finn saw it, the smile Felix had been eagerly anticipating. It was worth every single mistake he had made an effort to get her there. Finn wasn't accustomed to taking things slow in his life. It's always been an exciting journey of momentum, pursuing the next deal, the next acquisition, and the next opportunity. Success. Here on the island, time flowed in its own unique way, with no ringing to interrupt the peace. Phones. No urgent emails, no meetings to dominate. Instead, there was the rhythmic. The sound of the ocean, the warmth of the sun on his skin, and the laughter of a little boy who was beginning to find his place in the world. His heart in a way Finn never expected, and then there was MIA. She was a contradiction, soft yet sharp. Guarded yet undeniably magnetic. He had seen glimpses of the girl he remembered from high school, the one he had been too intimidated to approach. But she was approachable. She was no longer just that girl. She had transformed into a mother, a strong woman who had faced challenges and emerged with resilience to gather the fragments. Someone who had mastered the art of thriving without relying on anyone to remain. Finn was eager to show her. The weekend unfolded in unexpected ways that he hadn't planned. He had thought this trip could be a wonderful opportunity to demonstrate to Mia and Felix a life filled with possibilities, helping to lighten some of their burdens. It shifted focus. It was no longer about money or solutions, but rather about moments when Felix was soaked from the ocean, inviting him to a fun sandcastle contest. Mia rolled her eyes, yet she sat beside them, sculpting towers with her delicate fingers and allowing Felix to bury him in the sand. And the boy cackled wildly as Mia captured the moment with a photo. It was straightforward and simple, especially for a man whose life had been centered around control and structure. It was exhilarating how much he wanted to hold on to it that night. Finn had. He planned a private beachside dinner. Nothing extravagant, just something special that he had remembered. Conversation from high school where Mia once shared her dream of enjoying dinner under the stars. Just the two of them. Someone special, no distractions. Back then, he envisioned what it could have been like to be that person. Now he had the opportunity to make it happen. Felix had crashed early, feeling a bit tired from the day of sun and adventure. Finn and I found ourselves alone as the sky transformed into a deep blue, with stars beginning to twinkle above us. To scatter across the horizon, she had been quietly observing the waves all evening, her thoughts drifting to far-off places. "You're overthinking it," Finn said as they strolled toward the candlelit table set up just past the shore. Mia glanced around. "I've got so much on my mind." He pulled out her chair with a smirk, encouraging her to take a seat. "Just enjoy." She took a moment before sitting down, eyeing the surroundings with curiosity. Flickering candles and the soft glow of the lanterns illuminate the sand, creating a beautiful scene. "That's great. I'm really good at that," he playfully said while pouring each of them a glass of wine. "You should allow yourself to savor it," she exhaled, taking a sip. And he noticed the way her shoulders relaxed just slightly. The ocean breeze danced with the loose strands of her hair. And Finn had to remind himself to breathe. She had always been beautiful, but here in this radiant light, with the waves as a backdrop, she looked like something out of a dream. For a while, they enjoyed a comfortable silence together. It was only halfway through their meal that she finally said, "I still don't understand why you're doing this," then setting down his glass. "You really believe I don't care?" "I think, man, it seems like you typically don't think about people like me," she said with sincerity. "You have so much that I don't." He leaned forward. "And yet here I am," Mia thought, gazing off into the distance. "Water, Finn, this is a unique story. People like you can truly make a difference." Something in his chest tightened. "Men like me." She let out a dry laugh. It's challenging to feel left behind and to wake up each day with that weight. It's natural to wonder about the feelings of someone you cared for deeply, especially when they don't respond immediately. Life has its own pace, and sometimes it takes time to understand each other fully. Life can be challenging, especially when faced with the unexpected. Like a husband walking out and leaving one to navigate the journey of raising a child alone. It's a heavy burden, but there's always hope for brighter days ahead. But he was unaware of the experience of growing up with a desire for more, pursuing something that felt just out of reach. And at this moment, something was sitting across from him. And he felt confident he was going to leave. He leaned back in his. "As I sit here, I can't help but think back to high school when I had this huge. I have a crush on this girl, Mia." She arched a brow. "And oh, she is funny and smart. Definitely a way out of my league," he said with a smirk, and I felt a spark of hope that maybe she would notice me someday. Mia's lips. It felt like a turning point. He reflected, especially since I discovered it. Recently, it seemed she was unaware of my existence, and she even circled my face in her yearbook. Mia groaned, covering her With her hands on her face, Felix has the biggest mouth. Finn chuckled. I should express gratitude for the past. If I had known then, who knows what could have happened. She let her hands fall as she gazed at. He was careful, and while we didn't realize it at the time, he has acknowledged it, and now we understand. Silence stretched between them. The air filled with a sense of possibility. It would be so easy to lean in, to close the distance, to embrace the moment that had been waiting for them for years, but then Mia shook her head, gently pushing back her chair. I should go check on Felix. Finn frowned. Mia, this is a lot, she said. Standing there, he felt the urge to pause, to share what was on his mind with her. That not every man walked away, and perhaps he had been waiting for this moment all along. She had been waiting for him just as much, and he understood that pushing her wouldn't be effective. So, he chose to let her go, observing the moment unfold. As she disappeared into the house, Finn ran a hand over his face, feeling a spark of determination. Had spent his life winning. But this was an opportunity to explore, not just a deal to be closed. Business strategy was in Mia's hands, and he felt confident she would impress him. Put in the effort, and everything will turn out well. Finn Wesley is definitely not the kind to back down from a challenge. The journey ahead is promising. Touched down smoothly on the tarmac. And for the first time in his life, Finn felt. It seemed he wasn't quite prepared to step back into reality. The island had been a delightful escape. A bubble where he could enjoy a sense of freedom for a moment that he belonged in a world beyond boardrooms and billion-dollar deals. And now as he watched me gather, they handled their things with care, avoiding his gaze, aware that whatever had begun between them was delicate, yet full of potential. Too fragile to force. Felix, on the other hand, had no reservations. He bounced, thrilled in his seat, still buzzing from the trip, practically radiating with energy. That was incredible, he exclaimed. Mom, did you see how Finn leaped into the water? With his clothes on, rich people never do things like that. Mia sighed but hid a smile. Felix, it's important not to jump to conclusions about others. But he did say it's true. In fact, he's quite cool for a billionaire, Finn chuckled. What high praise. Felix grinned and then eagerly dug into his backpack. Oh, I almost forgot. He pulled out a sheet of paper carefully folded into a neat square and handed it to Finn with a smile. Here, Finn unfolded it slowly, absorbing the title written in large, uneven letters at the top. That application form. Below that, Felix had jotted down a list of questions, some serious and others delightfully absurd. One of them was, will you stay? And circle 1. No take-back space. Felt a surge of determination as he read that last question. He took a deep breath, glancing at Mia, but she looked away, pretending to adjust the strap on her bag. He understood her thoughts. This was precisely what she had envisioned. Fearing Felix's oblivious grin, he reassured him, you don't have to fill it out. At this moment, just take a moment to consider it. Finn folded the paper with care and tucked it into the inside pocket of his jacket. I'll definitely give it some serious thought. To please Felix, who nodded with approval. Finn continued his efforts over the next few weeks. Found himself doing things he never thought he'd do, like showing up at a kid's soccer game. He stood on the sidelines in his usual tailored suit, standing out in a charmingly unique way among the other parents in their jeans and team t-shirts. He brushed off the curious looks from the moms whispering nearby and concentrated on the field where Felix was, running with a determination that made Finn grin when Felix scored a goal. He turned immediately to look for Finn in excitement. The crowd, his face brightening when he saw him there. Finn lifted a hand in a small salute and Felix puffed out his, with excitement in his chest. He dashed back to his teammates, ready to tackle the science project that Finn, who had never built anything before, was eager to dive into. Anything without a whole team of engineers supporting him, found himself knee-deep in glue, cardboard, and it seemed like it might be glitter glue. Even though Felix confidently insisted it wasn't the volcano model, was meant to be simple, but by the time Finn was done, he had added so many layers that it turned into something quite intricate. Seemed like a promising prototype for an effective disaster prevention system. It's really impressive. Felix declared. They're going to think I cheated. Finn smirked. Then you'll just have to show them otherwise. It's important to share that you had an expert consultant. And then there was the cooking incident where Finn had never cooked a day in his life. And then Mia casually mentioned that she was too feeling a bit worn out from making dinner. He realized that his offer might not have been the best choice. But there's always a chance for a better outcome next time. The pasta turned into a unique creation with some unexpected twists, featuring noodles that took on a new texture, a sauce that sparked curiosity, and a memorable cooking experience. Felix laughed so hard he almost fell out of his chair. "Finn, you always know how to bring the fun." Billionaire chef Mia, unable to contain her laughter, shook her head with delight. "All right, that's it. We're getting pizza." Finn is covered in flour, and it's just a bit amusing. A bit of cheese threw up his hands in a playful gesture of surrender, while Felix grinned, and Mia watched with delight. He let out a breath. He hadn't laughed like this in a long time. And the more, Finn became a part of their lives as Mia's fears began to surface, and she noticed how Felix looked up to him with admiration. He began waiting at the window around the time Finn typically arrived, speaking of him with such enthusiasm as if he were already part of the family. It filled her with a mix of excitement and curiosity because she had seen this before, with Finn and Felix's father. The gradual development of trust and the beauty of promises were made until one day they stopped, one evening as they were tidying up after another dinner that didn't go as planned. Mia finally shared what had been on her mind. She said, "You do realize he thinks you're staying right?" Finn, who had been wiping his hands on a dish towel, paused. What a delightful moment. "Felix," she pointed to the living room where the boy was comfortably sprawled out on the couch, happily flipping through a book, "believes this is lasting that you're lasting." Finn was quiet for a while. In that moment, he thoughtfully said, "Maybe it is." Mia's throat tightened as she replied, "Don't say that. Unless you truly mean it." He placed the towel down. "Mia, I can't allow him to experience that." Once more, she interrupted, her voice barely above a whisper. "I won't." Finn stepped closer, his expression soft yet earnest. "I don't plan on leaving," she exhaled. With a hint of uncertainty, she rubbed her hand over her face and said, "Finn, I'm just not sure how to trust that." He observed her intently for a while before reaching into his jacket pocket and pulling out the crumpled application form from Mia's dad. With a breath caught, he admitted he hasn't filled it out yet, unfolding it carefully. "I approach decisions with great care, Mia, and this is something I truly consider deeply." Before she could respond, there was a knock at the door, and Felix got up to answer it. And when Mia saw who was standing there, her stomach fluttered with surprise. A man. She hadn't seen Felix's father in years. And there he was, smiling as if he had never left. Mia felt a flutter of surprise as she took in the man standing at her doorstep. Her ex-husband Ryan looked almost exactly the same sharp features, the same easy smirk, but his eyes had a hint of something special, indications of someone who has devoted too much time pursuing the wrong paths. Weary but hopeful. Restless hollow Felix stood between them, his posture firm and unwavering, choosing to maintain his distance. Didn't call out for Dad or rush into his arms like a child excited for a joyful reunion. Instead, he looked up at Mia with a hopeful curiosity, eagerly anticipating her reaction. She discovered her voice. "What are you doing here?" Ryan asked, shoving his hands in his pockets. It felt like just another casual visit, as if he hadn't walked out on them years ago. "I heard you've been keeping some." The prosperous company recently caught his attention as he glanced past her to where Finn stood quietly in the dining room. Clearly visible, his smirk widened. "I suppose I shouldn't be surprised by Mia's." Fingers curled into fists. "You need to leave," Ryan said, shaking his head. "Come on." "Hey Mia, there's no need to be so distant." "I just wanted to have a chat." Finn stepped forward. With a low and sharp voice, "She asked you to leave." Ryan's eyes darkened, yet he remained steadfast. "Move aside, big guy. This isn't your concern." Mia took a deep breath, pushing through. She reminded herself to keep her voice steady. "It's not your concern either, Ryan. You lost the right to be here the day you walked out." Ryan let out a laugh, devoid of humor and tinged with bitterness. "Come on, me. I never wanted to leave. I had to, but Felix finally spoke up after all this time." The quiet weight of his words beautifully settled in the space without needing to be said. Between them, Ryan hesitated for just a moment, his mouth tightening as Mia reached out, Felix's shoulder, and gently nudged him behind her. "I don't know what you want, but we're done here," Ryan scoffed, making an effort, working towards improvement. "And now that you've got..." His gaze brightened as he turned back to Finn. "I thought perhaps you might be able to return the favor." The realization hit Mia like a wave, sending a chill through her. Ryan is asking for money. He spread his hands and said, "Look, I found myself in a little bit of trouble, but I just figured it out. It's great to see that your new boyfriend is doing so well." Finn's voice was strong and confident. "We have to go, no choice." Ryan's smirk disappeared as I focused on her. Finn stepped in closer. Before Mia could stop him, he stepped between her and Ryan with a quiet authority that radiated confidence. "Message this ends here." Ryan let out a dry chuckle, but Mia could sense a positive change. In his expression, he showed a hint of uncertainty, but Finn's voice remained calm and steady, held the potential for something thrilling. "If you approach them again, I will ensure you remember this moment." Ryan appeared to be weighing his options, but then with a confident roll of his shoulders, he took a step back, shaking his head as if they were all being a bit dramatic. "Fine," he muttered, already moving on. Turning away, he confidently decided to figure it out himself and walked off without looking back. Mia let out a breath she hadn't realized she was holding. Felix remained silent, yet there was a sense of anticipation in the air. She turned and walked back into the house without a word. Finn's jaw was still tight. "Are you okay?" She took a moment to steady herself, then looked up at him with determination. "I don't need you to fight my battles for me, Finn," she said, her brows furrowing. "Together, Mia." I don't think her voice was as sharp as she intended it to be. "I understand your intentions to help, but this isn't just a business issue you can tackle. Resolve by investing resources or influence." Finn's expression shifted to a more serious tone that wasn't. "It was all about ensuring the safety of you and Felix, and I can definitely manage that. Ryan," she replied with confidence, "I've been managing him for years, and I won't let you come in and take over and make me feel like a project you want to help." Finn took a step back, a mix of emotions crossing his face. "I can see why you might think that," but Mia just let out a sigh. "I'm sure there's more to it. I may not fully understand what this is, Finn, but I know I need to protect Felix from getting too attached to someone who might not be around." Tomorrow, his expression became serious. "I told you I'm not leaving," Mia said, shaking her head. "It's interesting to hear you say that now, but just imagine how things might unfold when you see that this isn't exactly flawless. It's a wonderful idea that we aren't just a luxury getaway you can visit whenever you want to experience something different, Finn." He clenched his jaw. "You don't trust me?" Mia felt a pang in her chest. "I can't. I believe in you, Finn, especially when Felix's heart is at stake for even a moment. Neither of them should doubt." Expressed anything as it all lingered in the air. So much, so quickly, so complicated. But finally, Finn exhaled, his voice softer. "Mia, I'm not Ryan." She listened intently, swallowed hard. "I understand, but that doesn't mean you won't express yourself." Finn could feel them settling into his skin like a surprise that had taken him off guard. He had fought for everything in his life. Business deals contribute to the empire's success, and while it may not be a battle he can fight, there are always opportunities to explore. Into this was Mia, and she was gently drifting away without another word. Finn stood there for a long moment, then turned and walked into the house, pulling out the crumpled dad application from his pocket. He pulled out the form and glanced at the last question. "Do you promise not to leave like my real dad? This one is serious." Finn swallowed hard, staring at the empty space where his answer should have been felt different this time. For the first time in years, he found himself open to new possibilities, unsure of what to do with the distance. Between them was a tense moment after the argument, but Finn chose to respect Mia's wishes and took a step back. He decided to take a step back from dropping by unannounced, from attending Felix's soccer games, and from making calls. He reassured himself that he was making the right choices, giving her space and allowing her to breathe. Yet he found himself uncertain about the next steps to take. He had built an empire out of certainty, with every move in his life carefully calculated and every decision made with purpose, logic, and precision. Yet this was a storm he was eager to navigate. He had always known how to win, but this wasn't just about winning, and perhaps Felix quickly recognized the change. He had grown beyond being just a kid who. There were some things that slipped by, and even though M put on a brave face, it was clear that something was off one evening. He sat at the dinner table, gently picking at his food. Finn hasn't been around much, but there's always hope for brighter days ahead. Mia's grip on her fork tightened as she noticed Felix frowning. "You told him to leave," she reminded him with a hint of determination. She hesitated. "Didn't she?" "Felix, You did. He pushed his plate away, his voice rising. I knew you would. You always do this. You encourage people to move on. Mia flinched, a hint of pain flickering in her eyes. That's not fair, she said, while Felix shook his head in disagreement. It seems like you're feeling a bit uncertain. You might believe that distancing yourself will lessen the pain of a potential goodbye, but what if he truly cares? What if you just made him? Mia opened her mouth to respond, but Felix had already stepped away to his room, the sound of his door closing resonating through the house. Mia took a deep breath, feeling a mix of emotions. Pressing her fingers to her temples, she wondered if she had made a mistake. Meanwhile, across the city, Finn sat in his office, gazing at his phone, ready to embark on a new journey. He deleted a dozen texts to Mia, feeling the urge to reach out and fix things. But perhaps she was right. Perhaps he just didn't know how to stay. Then he noticed it, a small note. Folded neatly and sitting on his desk, Finn picked it up with a curious expression, unfolding it with anticipation. The handwriting was a bit messy, written in pencil with uneven letters. If you love her, don't give up. Felix. Finn inhaled deeply. With determination, the kid had snuck into his office and gripped the note tighter. In just 7 words. He captured what Finn had been pondering for weeks, and Finn leaned back, running a hand through his hair. His hair? Did he love her? It was an intriguing thought, and as he sat there, possibilities danced in his mind. As he read Felix's words, the answer blossomed in his chest like a long-held truth, waiting for the perfect moment to be embraced. Out loud, yes, he did, and suddenly the question transformed into whether he would stay. How he could inspire Mia to let him. Later that day, Mia found herself outside. Finn's office building was a place he hadn't intended to visit, but she had reassured herself that she was on the right path. Moving on, she was looking out for Felix and for herself. But Felix's words had. It's been on her mind ever since their argument. You don't let people stay. She did that because she was too afraid to embrace hope with Finn. Before she could dwell on it too much, she confidently stepped inside, making her way to the elevator. When she reached his office, his assistant wasn't at her desk, leaving the door slightly ajar. Mia felt a moment of hesitation. Just a moment before she pushed it open, her breath danced against the wall behind his. On the desk was a framed piece of paper, not an award or a business certificate, but something special to Felix. That application form. She took a confident step forward, her eyes scanning the familiar questions, the messy handwriting, and at the bottom, where there had once been an empty space, there was now a answer written in blank yes. Mia felt a tightness in her throat. He hadn't thrown it away. She heard movement behind her and turned to see Finn standing in the doorway, watching her for a moment. Of them spoke. Then softly he said, I never wanted to leave. Mia exhaled, her hand shaking, and then Finn stepped closer because you encouraged me to. She looked at him, then truly saw him, the man who had entered her son's life, who had arrived, who had made a difference. Felix laughed again, the man who had brought her joy once more, defying all odds. Made her believe that perhaps, just perhaps, some people did stay. Finn, her voice was. With a gentle whisper, I love you, he expressed the words with raw certainty. And I love Felix. I'm excited to show you that I'm here to stay, and I'll dedicate every single day to proving it. Mia swallowed hard. I'm scared. He nodded. I know, but I'm here. And I'm not going anywhere. Mia was excited to go anywhere for the first time in years, allowing herself to believe in the possibilities with Finn. Had dedicated his life to perfecting grand gestures, closing billion-dollar deals, and orchestrating corporate takeovers. Hosting extravagant events that captured attention, he certainly knew how to leave a lasting impression. Command attention. How to make the world stop and look. But this time he chose a different path. The world needed to see him. He just needed her. Mia had always looked beyond the money and the power from the very beginning. From the start, she had pushed him in ways that no one else ever had. She wasn't swayed by his wealth. She saw beyond that. Swayed by his influence, she had desired something genuine, and for the first time in his life, Finn aspired to be that for someone, so he returned to the simplest. All he could think of was that with no money and no extravagance, it was just pure effort that propelled him forward. It took a bit longer than expected as I navigated through a recipe that seemed quite different from the simple instructions provided. Indicated that the first attempt faced challenges, and the second showed some room for improvement. But by the third, he had something delicious, slightly overcooked, and a little uneven, but crafted with his own two hands. By the time he arrived at my workplace, the paper, it was a remarkable achievement. Bag holding his slightly burnt but heartfelt attempt at dinner felt warm in his hand. The security guard gave him a cautious look as Finn Wesley stood in the lobby of a modest little office building. Take out bags like a bright-eyed teenager eagerly anticipating prom night. He didn't mind that the receptionist looked startled as he approached the desk with a smile. "Can I help you, sir?" the attendant asked. "I'm here for Mia Jameson," he replied cheerfully. Shifting the bag in his hand, he kindly asked her to let the woman know he's waiting with a hopeful smile. She lifted her head slightly, nodded, and picked up the phone just minutes later. Mia stepped into the lobby with a mix of curiosity and excitement. Finn. His eyes brightened as they darted to the bag in his hands. "What are you doing here?" He let out a breath, filled with curiosity, and held up the bag, "Bringing you dinner." Mia folded her arms, giving him a cautious look. "Look, did you buy it?" "No," he admitted. "I cooked it." Her expression brightened. She seemed uncertain about believing him. But he added that it might be terrible. "Still, I thought if I was going to prove something, I should at least do it right." She raised an eyebrow and asked, "What? What exactly are you trying to prove?" Finn stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Understand that money can't solve all problems and that love isn't defined by grand gestures. It's all about the choices you make every single day, Mia's, rather than gestures or expensive gifts." Lips parted slightly, her breath catching. "I choose you," Finn said, his voice steady. "Choose Felix, and I'll happily choose you both every day if you'll have me for a." For a long moment, Mia just stared at him. The entire lobby felt like it was holding its breath in a serene stillness. The hum of office workers moving around them gradually fades into the background, creating a serene atmosphere. Her expression brightened. "You really cooked it," she murmured, her lips twitching. "Burned it a little," he admitted with a smile. "All right." Mia took a deep breath, shaking her head, and then before he could completely, she stepped forward, reached up, and kissed him right there in the moment. In the heart of the office lobby, right in front of the surprised receptionist, the cheerful security guard, and a handful of others. Coworkers were playfully pretending not to watch as she kissed him, and Finn paused for just half a second, caught in the moment. Then melted into it, his free hand reaching for her waist, pulling her close. She tasted like something sweet, something familiar, something he had been eagerly anticipating without even knowing it. When she pulled away, her eyes sparkled with joy. "Yes," she whispered. Finn frowned. "Absolutely," she smiled, and Finn felt a warmth in his chest. Released something constricting and anxious. And just like that, it vanished. He beamed with joy. "That's great, because I wasn't planning on going anywhere." Mia shook her head, taking the bag from his hands. "Let's see just how much you really burned this." Finn chuckled, ready for the challenge. As they walked out of the office together side by side, he felt a sense of certainty. This was undoubtedly home. The months that followed may not have been perfect, but they were uniquely theirs. Finn had spent his life embracing every moment, pursuing success, constantly progressing, always creating, and eagerly anticipating what lies ahead. For the first time, he was fully present, enjoying the moment without worrying about the next deal, the next expansion, or the next business empire. He was excitedly pondering what delicious breakfast to prepare for Felix and whether Mia would enjoy coffee or tea in the morning. How to create room in his once sterile penthouse for a 7-year-old's ever-growing collection of action figures and soccer gear was an adjustment, one he found himself loving more than he ever anticipated. Mia continued to playfully tease him about his cooking, especially after yet another attempt at pancakes that didn't quite go as planned. Somehow led to the alarm blaring at 6 o'clock in the morning, a sound Finn had never experienced before. Felix laughed so hard. "You're the most unique billionaire chef in history." Felix had a great time, exclaimed between bursts of laughter, "Thrilled to realize I've made it into the history books," Finn had said, waving a towel under the smoke detector while Mia leaned against the counter, beaming at him later that evening when things had calmed down and Felix had gone to bed. Finn found himself standing in Mia's tiny kitchen, watching her wash the dishes. The final dishes were being washed, the light was gentle, her hair cascading over one shoulder, and he felt something settle deep in his chest. "You know, I could just hire someone," he had said with a smirk, "that he would cook for us." Mia snorted and replied, "Absolutely not. I enjoy watching." He stepped closer, wrapping his arms around her waist from behind and gently pressing his lips to the side of her neck. She had playfully leaned in, enjoying the sight of me struggling, which made the moment all the more delightful. With my back against him, everything changed in an instant, and now, months later, I can see how far we've come. Everything felt just perfect. Felix had decided to stop waiting at the window for him because I always believed Finn would come through. His belongings began to show up in Finn's penthouse first, starting with little things like a soccer ball nestled in the corner, accompanied by a backpack resting near the door, all waiting for the day when Mia would take a deep breath and embrace the moment, and said to Wesley, "We really feel at home here now, Finn had. I always wanted so much." And yet there was still one exciting thing left to complete. In the afternoon, while Felix was at school and Mia was out running errands, Finn sat in his office and eagerly pulled open the top. Inside the drawer of his desk, neatly tucked between files and papers, was the slightly crumpled piece of paper he had cherished for months. Felix's dad application formed the same one he had gazed at that night after their argument, hopeful about what might come next. He had the opportunity to respond as he picked up a pen, smoothing out the wrinkles with determination. Eyes skimmed over the questions, finding amusement in some of the things Felix had deemed important. 1. Will you stay? Why? / and circle 1. No take-backs. Finn circled yes. 2. Do you like pizza? It's important. He smirked and wrote, yes, but only if someone else makes it. 3. Are you all right with my mom giving you instructions? She tends to do that quite a bit, and he chuckled. I believe I have a challenge ahead of me. Can you take me on in Mario Kart? Let's see what happens. You can't. Finn smirked. Challenge accepted. And then came the final question. 5. Can you promise me that you won't leave like my real dad? This is really important. Finn took a deep breath, gazing at the words for a moment before thoughtfully crafting his answer for all time. He sat back, exhaling slowly, and with great care, placed the paper in an envelope. That night, after dinner, he set it aside with a sense of anticipation. The envelope in front of Felix piqued his curiosity. What's this? Felix asked, tilting his head in anticipation as he opened it. Finn exclaimed as Felix eagerly tore it open, his eyes scanning the page, and a bright smile spread across his face. As he read the answers, a sense of anticipation filled him. But when he reached the last one, he paused. His fingers tightened on the paper and his voice. He spoke more softly. You mean it? Finn leaned forward, locking eyes with him. I mean it. Felix's lip trembled. Then, in a burst of excitement, he launched himself forward, wrapping his arms around Finn's neck, while Mia watched from across the room with a smile. She pressed her hand to her mouth as Finn held Felix tightly, feeling a rush of emotions as his throat tightened. Love you, kid. Felix sniffled. I love you too. When he finally pulled back, he looked at Mia. She was watching them, her eyes shimmering with a hint of mystery. Her expression brightened as he stepped toward her. Felix is not the only one. I made a promise, he murmured. Mia's breath caught as Finn reached into his pocket. As Mia pulled out a small velvet box, her eyes widened with excitement. Finn, I've spent my whole life is about building things, he said softly, and everything comes together beautifully until this moment, until you. He opened the box, revealing a simple yet elegant ring. Marry me, Mia, he let out. With a shaky laugh and a hand pressed to her chest, she exclaimed, You're completely insane. He agreed, but I love you too, and I'm excited to spend every day showing you just how much. Felix is still holding the Dad's application form radiated hope as he eagerly awaited a yes. Mom and Mia exchanged glances, with tears of joy slipping down their cheeks. Tears rolled down her cheeks, and then finally she smiled, the kind of smile Felix had been waiting for. Waiting for all along, yes. Finn let out a breath he hadn't realized he was holding. As he slipped the ring onto her finger, he pulled her into his arms with a joyful cheer. What a wonderful day. Finn chuckled, planting a kiss on Mia's forehead before turning to. Felix believes I passed the application. He grinned while holding up the paper. Approved, and for the first time in his life, Finn felt a sense of possibility beyond being a billionaire. He felt like home. Finn had thought that once Mia said yes, once she allowed herself to believe in them, the possibilities were endless. He was confident that once she accepted his love, her fears would fade away, and they would move forward together, move ahead with confidence, knowing that love takes time to grow. It was more than just saying the words. It was about demonstrating them time and time again. And in spite of everything they faced, crafted through the nights woven with whispered promises and the mornings brightened by sleepy laughter and warmth. Pancakes. Finn could still sense a hint of hesitation in Mia. At first, it was subtle. The way she would take a moment before diving into long-term plans. How she playfully sidestepped conversations about their future with. There were playful jokes, and then there were those beautiful moments when she would wake up before him. Sitting by the window with a thoughtful gaze, she gazed into his eyes, as if anticipating a shift, hoping he might reconsider. Finn allowed the days to pass without addressing it. Believing that time would be a powerful ally in winning her over, yet the doubts lingered, reminding him of the efforts he had dedicated throughout his life to build a sense of security. There are many things that contracts and businesses can build, even empires, but this was the one thing he couldn't achieve. After putting Felix to bed, Finn discovered Mia sitting on the couch, ready to share an evening together. The couch, gazing at an old photo album, she hadn't noticed him come in, completely absorbed in the memories. Whatever memory had captured her attention, he asked. "What are you looking at?" As he settled beside her, she closed the album. Gently, her fingers brushed over the well-loved cover, reminiscing about the cherished old pictures as Finn waited with anticipation. Observing the way her shoulders tensed as she prepared herself for what was to come, Mia released a slow breath. "Finn, do you ever think that perhaps this is all just a part of the journey?" His jaw tightened, but there's always a way forward. She looked up at him, her eyes searching his. "For you. For us. I mean, this was a moment filled with potential. The life you envisioned for yourself was all mapped out, and you had everything in your world perfectly arranged before we arrived." Finn took a deep breath, running a hand through his hair. "Through his hair, Mia, I need you to share what's truly happening because if you, I believe I wouldn't regret this. If you think I would trade this life for what I had before, then you don't truly understand me." She swallowed hard. It's not about regret. It's about her moment of pause as she held the edge of the album. Imagine a day when you discover the potential for more, when you awaken to the possibility of a life filled with freedom and joy, where you could enjoy carefree moments without the stress of school drop-offs or soccer games. And she shook her head while Finn gazed at her with curiosity. His heart tightened at the genuine vulnerability in her voice. He had never seen Mia like this. Not even when faced with the possibility of loss. Filled with belief in him, he reached for her hand, gripping it tightly. "I chose. This is Mia. I would choose you every single time in every version of my life. Choose you." She looked down at their joined hands, her thumb brushing against his. "You say that now." Finn felt a surge of determination not directed at her, but at overcoming the shadows of her past and healing the wounds that hadn't fully healed. He stood up suddenly, pulling her up with him. "Come on." Mia frowned as she just arrived. With a gentle breath, she allowed him to guide her out the door and down the street, where the night air was refreshingly crisp and peaceful. They strolled together in a comfortable silence, until they reached the small park where Felix liked to play after school. It was empty now. Bathed in the soft glow of street lights illuminated the night as Finn turned to face her. "Do you want to know what I miss?" Mia asked, crossing her arms with a hopeful smile. Her arms raised, a brow lifted in curiosity. "Enlighten me." Finn took a deep breath. "I long for the version of me that was unaware of the warmth of home. I yearn for the days when I didn't know what it felt like to have a. My 7-year-old believes in me so much that he encouraged me to apply to be his dad. I look forward to discovering what it's like to love someone so much that the thought of losing them takes your breath away." Mia's lips parted slightly, but Finn stepped closer. "And I realized I don't miss my old life. Mia, I truly cherish this moment. When I'm away from it for even a second, you think I'm going to wake up one day and want something different?" He shook his head. "I woke up and discovered that I truly began to live when you came into my life." A tear of joy slipped down Mia's cheek, but she held her gaze steady. Finn took a slow breath. His voice gentler. "I understand your fears, and I see where they come from, but I encourage you to take a deep breath and let go." As he waited for me to leave, he gently cued her face, his thumb brushing away the tear with a tender touch. Mia closed her eyes, exhaling shakily, and when she opened them, a new sense of possibility filled the air. Once more, the fear lingered. But alongside it was something else, something gentler. She let out a small, joyful laugh. You have a wonderful talent for saying just the right things. Finn smirked. And that's because she truly meant them. She shook her head, wrapping her arms around his neck. He whispered, I don't deserve you, as Finn pulled her closer, pressing a sweet kiss to her temple. You truly deserve everything. Mia let out a breath, sinking against him, and for the first time in weeks, Finn felt the tension in her body finally ease. The next morning, Finn woke up to the delightful sound of laughter and happily made his way into the kitchen. Seeing Felix at the table, marker in hand, and the dad application form proudly displayed, Finn couldn't help but raise an eyebrow in curiosity. Felix grinned, adding something as Finn stepped closer, watching with interest. As Felix enthusiastically wrote a new question at the bottom of the form 60 you. I'll always love my mom, even when she gets a bit worried for no reason. Finn smirked as he picked up the pen. With a spark of confidence, he wrote with everything he had, and Felix beamed as he looked over his work. With a sense of pride, he dashed off to find Mia, calling out, Mom. Finn signed the form again, and this time he truly can't take it back. Finn chuckled, shaking his head with a smile. He folded the paper, slipping it into his jacket pocket where it belonged. Mia walked into the kitchen, her eyes sparkling. Sleepy yet enveloped in warmth, Finn pulled her close, pressing a gentle kiss to her. My lips are still hopeful for a change of heart. While Mia rests her forehead gently beside me, Finn smirked, feeling good about it. I'm not the best at making pancakes, so I could really use your help. She laughed. Shaking her head, she agreed. But only because Felix truly deserves a wonderful breakfast, Finn. Mia rolled her eyes with a grin, but her smile said it all. Absolutely, and just like that. The last of her doubts disappeared because love was more than just. It was about choosing each other time and time again, through all the days that came our way. Followed felt lighter as if a weight had finally lifted. Mia stopped waiting for Finn to change his mind, and Finn, in turn, embraced the moment, ensured she always felt secure. With no more quiet hesitations and no more glances filled with unspoken fears, there was only them, mornings filled with warmth. The scent of coffee and burnt toast as Finn joyfully continued his battle with the toaster. An afternoon filled with fun chasing Felix around the backyard. The sound of laughter fills the house as evenings unfold, with Finn immersed in his book while Mia enjoys a cozy rest on the couch. With his head resting on his shoulder, Felix would sometimes drift off to sleep between them, his tiny hand gently holding onto Finn's. One night, as they stood on the back porch, watching Felix chase fireflies in the yard, Mia slipped her hand into Finn's. I was wrong, she softly murmured as Finn turned to watch her, taking in what she exhaled while gently squeezing his. Fingers dancing around thoughts of you, love, and the belief that it can endure. Finn smiled. Gently, she lifted her gaze to him, her eyes brimming with a profound emotion. Absolutely, I know it does. Finn pressed a kiss to her forehead, letting the. In that delightful moment, Felix dashed up to them, breathless and beaming. Did you? Look at that. I caught 3. Finn is crouched down, ruffling his hair. That's really impressive, kid. Perhaps I should start calling you Firefly Whisper. Felix laughed, and then suddenly wrapped his arms around Finn's waist, squeezing tight. I love you, Finn. Finn felt his chest tighten with warmth spreading through him as he hugged Felix back. With a steady and confident voice, I love you too, buddy. Mia watched them, her heart brimming with joy. And for the first time in her life, she embraced the belief that this was real because love was something you anticipated. It wasn't something you dreaded losing. It was something you embraced, and together they. If you loved this story, please leave a like. It truly makes a difference. Check out the channel. And if you're looking for more uplifting and touching stories like this, be sure to hit that subscribe button and turn. Stay tuned for notifications so you won't miss an upload. I'm excited to hear your thoughts on this one in the comments. Thank you for your reactions. I appreciate you watching, and I can't wait to see you in the next story.